7:58 on my clock here in Mountain Time. We started a couple minutes late, and I'll just end here with some thoughts on this spree killer active shooter situation that happened yesterday in my old hometown of Columbus, Ohio. We've been doing a lot of work ever since Sandy Hook through ICE Training Company and other affiliated personal defense network, Endeavor, Krav Maga, and Fitness. We've got the active shooter response program and the school attacker response courses that we're running through our entities is incredibly important to me. The evolution of active shooter response, and of course I would prefer that we would say spree killer response. I would prefer that the media didn't call every AK-47 or AR-15 type firearm an assault weapon, but this terminology is beyond, I think, the important parts of this conversation. So we know that most schools, most campuses are now referring to any spree killing or active violence, mass violence event as an active shooter to get everyone's attention, to get them mobilized, and get them to put whatever plan they have in place. We know that yesterday, the spree killer, the terrorist incident, was a guy who ran a car into a group of people and then pulled out a knife and started stabbing some of the people in that crowd. And the only shooting that was done by the good guy, a police officer at Ohio State University, who put the bad guy down. I believe it was with 3 rounds fired, 3 hits, and the bad guy was killed right there on the spot. So, this situation, the spree killer situation, ever since when I was active in law enforcement, was during the era we had the Columbine event out here in Colorado. And that really changed the way law enforcement looked at active shooter response. It got us back to what law enforcement was back in my dad's day, which is if you've got the flashy red and blue lights and you've got the badge and kids are being shot, you go in there and do something about it. When I went through the police academy, it was the era of everybody's got a SWAT team. Every jurisdiction had a team. So, patrol guys, you just form a perimeter, make sure no bad guys get out or new good guys go in harm's way. And when the professionals get there, the SWAT guys get there, they'll handle this shooting situation. Of course, there are times when that's the right thing to do, a barricade, a hostage situation, things like that. But for active shooting, it's not the way to go. For spree killing, someone's actively attacking a school and kids inside that school, it's not the way to go. We got to get in there and do something about it. And now, in the wake of Sandy Hook, we've evolved even what we tell the kids in the schools and people in their workplace, people in the public environment to do. And we no longer tell people to hide and hope. We don't tell people to lock down and just wait and hope that the professionals get there, whether it's the SWAT guys or the patrol guys or the security guys. We tell people to get away if they can, to evade. We tell them to barricade if they can't get away, make it harder for the bad guy to get to you. And then ultimately we tell people to fight, to respond as appropriate. If the bad guy gets into the room, gets in the area you are, you need to protect yourself. You all need to work together. Anybody in that room, in that space, need to fight the bad guy. And that information was put out by OSU in their first tweet. It said active shooter. Of course, we know that's just a term. They said active violence, active shooters going on, run, hide, fight. And they gave the location where this was happening. And they came under criticism. I could not believe. I guess I should know better by now, but I cannot believe. I'm forever disappointed in people inside of the gun community who let their politics get confused with their tactics, who let their politics get in the way of the tactics that they should be encouraging people to use to defend themselves and defend others in these worst case scenarios during these spree killer events. Going back to the school systems that got criticized for telling kids to bring cans to stack up in the back of the room so that in the worst case scenario, the middle schoolers, the grade schoolers could pick up cans of soup and vegetables and throw them at the bad guy coming through the door. Guess what? The 10-year-old's not going to be carrying an AR. The 10-year-old's not going to be carrying a gun. And even if the teacher were armed, that's one person defending a room full of kids as opposed to an entire room full of kids working with an armed teacher to defend themselves. I think we get really short-sighted when we try to address our political agenda instead of empowering people to fight. So when a school that happens to have a gun-free campus like OSU says run, hide, fight, we need to be applauding them for moving in the right direction of empowering people to defend themselves, because the natural conclusion, the natural evolution suits our politics. It leads people to the conclusion, well, wait a minute, if I have to fight a guy with a gun, maybe I should have a gun. Maybe I should get trained. Maybe I should get equipped and be capable of carrying a gun. Maybe I should change that campus policy to one where I'm allowed to fight as efficiently as I possibly can. It doesn't help when people in the gun world say things like, well, the only way to stop a guy with a gun is to have a gun yourself. First of all, it's nonsense. It's completely not true. We know that it's not true. Plenty of unarmed people or people armed with things other than firearms have stopped determined and armed attackers, not only in spree killer events, but in terrorist events and many other crimes of violence. So it holds no logical sense, first of all. Second of all, it disempowers everyone who can't or won't or doesn't carry a gun. And we can write off people that can't. You can say, well, the people that can't should change the laws. Write off the people that won't. Well, they're not taking responsibility for themselves, and that's what they get. But the people that haven't had the opportunity to get the training, the people that haven't, maybe they have a gun, they're looking forward to getting training and being able to carry responsibly, but they don't feel like they're there yet. Maybe there's people in a situation where they have a gun and they have training, but they're not trained to a level where they feel confident pulling that gun out in that crowd and trying to defend themselves without endangering other people. There are all kinds of situations where a gun isn't the best tool, where a gun isn't the right answer, and where other answers are available to people when firearms aren't. So as a community that's all interested in the politics of advancing the freedom to carry firearms and the right to carry firearms, I think we need to remember why we advance that right. We advance that right so that people are capable of defending themselves. It's not carrying a gun for the sake of carrying a gun. It's not exercising a right just to exercise it. It's exercising a right so that we can meet our responsibility to defend ourselves, and we should be encouraging everyone to defend themselves regardless of whether they have a gun or not, and empowering them to do it in as many ways as possible, just the way that OSU did, despite the fact that they're a gun-free campus. They encouraged the faculty and staff and the people visiting that campus to fight if they had to, and I applaud them for doing that. And I think that kind of attitude is what eventually leads to a change in firearms policies and a change in our whole culture, where we're teaching kids not to turn the other cheek, not to let the bully get away with it, but actually to stand up for themselves, to fight, to defend one another, to defend things they care about, people they care about, and the way of life that they care about. And that's what will expand our firearms rights in the long term and change a lot of minds in the American middle ground on firearms. So that's my little bit of political rant, but to remind people not to let their politics get in the way of their tactics. We need to be teaching people to defend themselves. Spree killer or personal defense, home invasion, workplace violence, whatever it is, sexual assault. We need to be empowering people, not disempowering them. So for more information on that, active shooter response, spree killer response, armed defense, unarmed defense, improvised defensive tools, head over to personaldefensenetwork.com, sign up for the free newsletter, check out the free videos and articles we've got. Thank you all very much for joining me. There's been a whole bunch of great comments. There's been a whole bunch of great questions that I just, rather than try to keep up with all that down there, I really wanted to engage you guys like we normally do. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I think December 22nd is our next PDN Live, and that's going to be the traditional through the Google chat and the YouTube, and then we'll get it posted to our blog. We should be able to post this video in full also through our YouTube channel, Personal Defense Net, and at the website as well. Share it with people. Let people see it, especially if there's something in there you think appeals to them, like women carrying on the body, not on the purse, beginner, someone transitioning from target shooting or competition shooting, transitioning over to defensive shooting, a new instructor. We had some of that topic addressed also. So I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. Share this with people you care about, people that you think might be interested. Thank you for watching tonight.